Welcome to the Real Estate Show with your real estate and mortgaging team, Terry Kilakos and Merav Marciano on CJAD 800.
Good afternoon, everyone. You're listening to The Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Terry Kilakos, a chartered real estate and mortgage broker, as well as president and founder of Northeast Real Estate and Mortgage Agency. There's a lot of ands in there, by the way, Merav. We have to fix that up. Today we're talking about why now is the best time to refinance your mortgage. With mortgage rates being at rock bottom levels, there's pretty much no time better than the present to actually take a little benefit from refinancing your mortgage at this time and basically save a little bit of money and maybe use the money for something that you've been putting off doing. So we're going to be looking at different refinancing strategies. Joining me, as always, we have my beautiful co-host and wife, Merav Marciano, chartered real estate and mortgage broker and vice president of Northeast. Welcome, mademoiselle.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I feel like you just have to say that beautiful part. Otherwise, you're going to sleep on the couch.
No. Everyone sends me messages. They send me emails and they're like, I saw a picture of your wife. What does she see in you?
Aw, that's not nice.
I know. You can always reach us during the week at the office at 514-680-4674, or you can visit us online at northeastmortgages.ca, or you could visit our new website, which is kind of up, which is nordest.ca. We're getting there. We're getting there. We're transitioning over from the northeastmortgages.ca website over to the nordest.ca website. So go on there, visit it, give us some feedback. I'd love to hear what you guys have to think. And if you haven't done so already, please take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is newsonthego.ca, where all the fun and exciting stuff that we do here at the studio behind the scenes gets shown to the world in all its glory. Before we kick off the show, let's do a little bit of a market update, Merav. Just get people up to speed as to what's going on. I would say ladies first, but I'm gonna go first. She has like her mouth open. She's like, I can't believe you're doing that. But let me talk a little bit about rates, and then I'll let you kick off. Rates are silly low.
Goodness.
Okay,
this brings me back to 2008, 2009.
Yeah, the rates are literally, for the last 10 years I've been saying, rates are at an all-time low. They're at an all-time low. They're at an all-time low. I don't think that they can actually get any lower than this. And now they're at an all-time low. Now they're at an all-time low. 5-year fixed rates, we're talking under 2% here. Plus, the Bank of Canada made an announcement, sort of. Economists they're hinted that they're not going to be changing the overnight rate on September 9th. And if you look at what economists are actually saying right now, we're not anticipating an increase in the overnight rate for the next 2 years. So we're not looking at an increase until 2023. Which is huge. So if you were kind of on the fence about whether you should go variable or fixed, this might help you out. If you know that you're going to be saving X amount of dollars from now until then, you might want to go on a variable. Mind you, fixed rates,
spreads are so small.
Fixed rates are, that's what I was going to say. Fixed rates are pretty much at the same level as what the variables are, if not in some cases actually lower. So yeah.
And I'd rather have the security of knowing for 5 years what my payments are rather than worry about rates.
Yeah, I'd like the flexibility of the variable rates, because it gives me like that was our commercial right now, by the way. Sorry. As you started talking, I was like, that kind of sounds like our commercial. Let's talk real estate. What's going on? The market's on fire.
Oh my goodness. Last week we looked at the stats for July. Insane. And really, what's the common thing out there? Not enough properties on the market and multiple offers on almost every single listing out there, unless there's an issue or it's overpriced or anything like that. But the majority of homes out there on the market are finding themselves in multiple offer situations. So this is the time to get yourself a broker if you are a buyer. So the whole thing of going online, looking for your own property, it does not work in this market, because I see people who come in unrepresented. If you're 10 offers and you're a buyer, you have to sell yourself.
Right.
The job of the broker is to vet you and to make sure that they explain to the listing broker why your offer is the best, how solid you are, the fact that you're financially stable, the dates are negotiated properly, the conditions are negotiated properly. So unless you have some sort of past experience, doing this on your own is very difficult, and winning in a multiple offer situation is very hard. So nowadays, get yourself a broker. If you're a buyer, it's free.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people don't realize.
And the thing, if I can give a piece of advice also, that's great advice, Merav. I mean, being represented by a broker is key. But you do have to remember one thing. When you're going into a multiple offer situation, now is not the time to sit there and find every excuse in the book to how you should underpay for that property, if you will, right? So a lot of times what happens is, as buyers, and I've done it, we've all done it, and I've said it on the show before, and it used to drive our old co-host crazy, but one of the things that I used to say is, if you're not embarrassed by the offer you're making, you're overpaying. This is not the market for that. This is not the market for it.
A lot of the properties are going for over asking price nowadays.
Exactly.
It's not the market to drop down the price like that.
And oddly enough, a lot of the success that we've been having, there's been a couple of clients, I don't know if you're aware of that, but they've actually given letters with the actual offer. So they're giving the offer, they're giving the pre-approval letter that we're supplying them, and they're actually giving an actual letter to the vendors saying, "Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we love your house. We have a family. We would love to grow up, have our kids grow up in this house, blah, blah." And they give like this heartfelt letter to basically make their offer stand out more than the other guy.
Yeah.
And you know what? It works. It works.
It does. And at the end of the day, every little thing matters, because a lot of people think it's just the price. Whoever offers the most will win. It's not always just the price.
That's right.
There's a lot around it. And
it's all about the art of the deal. It's all about making sure that your offer is going to stand out, and it's going to not only touch a part of the person's bank account, but it also needs to touch a part of their hearts in a case like this.
And sometimes we don't realize that what's going to make our offer win could be a condition that you don't realize is so important, like the date. The date of possession could make the entire difference. So it is important to have proper representation so that your offer stands out, like you said.
I don't want to. We'll get to refinancing after traffic, but I do want to say just a quick little story about when we bought our country house. So a dozen years ago, my family and I, we wanted to buy our first our country house. So what we ended up doing is we went and visited a whole bunch, and on the same day that we made our offer on our place, there was another offer that was made, except we came in saying how much we loved the house, and the other people came in saying how they were going to gut the place. And the vendor, it was a succession that we bought it from, his father had built that house. So what ends up happening? Now all of a sudden the vendor says to the other person, "Sorry, take a hike. We're not interested in your offer.
You touched an emotional chord.
We want these guys." Coming up, we're going to be looking at how refinancing your mortgage can be used to increase your cash flow. Now we're off to the CJAD Traffic Center.
You're listening to The Real Estate Show with your real estate and mortgaging team, Terry Kilakos and Merav Marciano on CJAD 800.
You're listening to The Real Estate Show, and today we're talking about refinancing your mortgage, whether or not it's a good idea and how to get it. And the reason why I'm laughing is because during the break, Merav and I, with the producer, we were talking about, how I just See, I have to add it in.
Oh,
She's
my
shaking
goodness.
her head. How I just actually finished a course at Harvard University. And, I'm
You're Harvard educated. Of
now.
Of course.
Whereas my beautiful wife is, Concordia educated.
Yeah,
so,
it's a problem. It's a problem.
I just insulted like half our listeners.
Don't worry, guys. It's just one course that he did between me, you, and the world.
All right. So what is a refinance? Let's dive into this because, we talk often on the show about refinancing. And for us, we've taken it for granted that everyone understands what a refinance is of a mortgage. But you'd be surprised how many people come to see me that actually don't know what a refinance is. So during the break, you mentioned that when you were younger, you used to be...
I was hearing it called remortgage.
Remortgage.
Right. So some people will say break your mortgage, remortgage. So it's basically any of the above. So basically what you're doing is breaking the term, renegotiating, sometimes adding money, and getting a brand new mortgage. That's really what it is.
Exactly. So anytime that you're going to change the status of a mortgage, right? So let's say you started off, you're on a 25-year amortization, you had a 5-year fixed, and at some point in year 3, you decide you need to go in, get some extra money out. The minute you do that, it's a refinance. Let's say you go into your you've done your 5 years, now your mortgage is up for renewal. And you come to see us and you say, you know what, I'd like to stretch the amortization out to 30 years. I started off on 25, I'm down to 20. I'd like to stretch it out to 30. That is a refinance. Any time that you're changing the state of the mortgage or changing any part of it, it's deemed a refinance. When we're switching from one institution to another, so for example, you're with Bank ABC and you saw a better deal with Bank XYZ, and you want to keep it dollar for dollar, amortization for amortization, that's a switch or a subrogation, right?
Yes.
There's my Harvard word.
Subrogation. Yes.
It's not really a Harvard word, but whatever.
Yes.
More Quebecois.
Yes. Well, it's a Larousse word.
That's it. Exactly. Larousse
Petit Robert.
I just wanted to clear that up because a lot of people don't understand. They'll come to see me and they're gonna say, look, my mortgage, I'm here for a renewal. By the way, I want to take out $30,000, but I don't want to refinance. And I'm like, but that's
that is a refinance.
That is a refinance. Okay.
Yes.
When you're adding, sometimes also in year 3, you might come in and say, I want to add a second mortgage onto the house, stuff like that. That's not necessarily refinancing. That's just adding on a second mortgage.
Which is not necessarily bad either, because growing up, that too, I've heard second mortgage, it's like the end of the world. But sometimes a lot of banks now, what they'll do a fixed portion, then you'll have like a second mortgage tacked on as a line of credit or things like that. Yep. So second mortgages, again, like you always say, Terry, if you use things, your tools in the right way, then there's nothing wrong with it as long as you're using it in the right way.
Exactly. So more than half of mortgages are renegotiated before the end of the term. So as we were driving in today, we were talking about that. What's the stat? Do you know?
So the stats are not always clear because some of the stats come from CMHC, some of the stats come from lenders, and some of the stats are not reported. But I've seen the stat anywhere between 50 and 80%. So really, I would say, to keep it on the safe side, more than half of mortgages are renegotiated. Don't make it to the 5 years.
Exactly.
And a lot of them, it's by the third or fourth year that they actually, between the third and fourth, that they renegotiate their mortgage.
That's right. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a matter of making sure that whatever you're going to be doing is something that actually makes sense. So when you are doing a refinancing, generally speaking, what you're going to be doing is when you restructure the mortgage, you're going to be saving money. So for example, if you refinance, and one of the reasons why you could refinance is to pay off debts, right? So let's say you have X amount of credit card debts. Maybe you have deferred payments in furniture that you bought for the house, landscaping, whatever it is. So, people accumulate debts for bizarre reasons. And let's say you do a refinance and now all of a sudden you're saving $2,000 a month. And on average, when we are doing a refinance, that's typically the amount of money that people will save. It's anywhere between $1,500 to $2,000 a month, which is a huge.
Well, it's high interest.
Yeah, it's a huge
Credit
chunk
cards
of change.
are between 18 and 22%. The majority of them, it's high interest.
That's right. But the key is, when you're doing something like that, is to make sure that you're doing something productive with that savings. Because just because you're saving that money doesn't mean that now is a time to increase your actual lifestyle. You can increase it slightly, but what you're going to be better off is actually doing something productive with it, whether it's investing that money, that actual $1,500 to $2,000 that you're saving a month, putting it aside. And my philosophy in a refinance is always goes based on the net worth equation. And this is something that we've talked about time and time again on the show. Net worth is equal to assets less liabilities, right? So when you have no assets and you have liabilities, obviously your net worth is going to be X. So if you owe $100,000, you have no assets, and all of a sudden you have a net worth of minus $100,000.
Yep.
But if you refinance that debt, and now all of a sudden you start saving, and you could start putting some money into that assets column, and depending on what you're doing and building up in that assets column, now you're going to be paying down the liabilities faster. You're going to be increasing your assets, and you can actually pay down those liabilities with the fruits of the assets, right? So that is my kind of way of doing things. That's how I like to structure things when I do a refinance for a customer. I always want to make sure that what they're going to be doing is going to make sense. You agree with me?
Yes, I think I would need more details, because the whole fruit, you lost me at fruits.
Okay, so let me give you something simple, right? So let's say you have a customer that comes in and they end up having a savings of $2,000 a month. Okay, so after a restructuring, they save about $2,000 a month. 2,000 times 12, that comes out to $24,000 a year. That money, as opposed to it going to liabilities, now can actually go into your assets. Once it goes into your assets, it's going to bear fruit.
So investments,
right? Investments,
like
RSPs,
okay.
tax refunds, so on and so forth.
Okay.
Once you have those tax refunds, so let's say I take $24,000, I put it into my RSP. Now all of a sudden I'm going to get $8,000 back to $9,000, depending on what it's about 30 to 35% that you get back. Once you have that, you take that money, that tax refund, and you pay off.
So now your fruits just bear fruit.
Exactly. You pay off the liability.
I get it.
Right? And by doing that, you're much, much further ahead. Up next, we're going to be discussing getting equity out of your home in order to buy another property. You won't want to miss this. You're listening to The Real Estate Show on CJAD 800.
You're listening to The Real Estate Show with your real estate and mortgaging team, Terry Kilakos and Merav Marciano on CJAD 800.
Thank you for joining us on The Real Estate Show. And today we're talking about why now is a good time to refinance your property. Feel free to visit us online at nordest.ca, or you can reach out to us at our office at 514-680-4674. And if you haven't done so, take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is newsonthego.ca. And don't forget to click that little bell so that you could be notified of all the awesome shows when they actually come live on the...
Get uploaded.
Uploaded. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
I was letting you struggle there because it was entertaining.
Yeah.
So, Terry, I think that, okay, we said more than half the people break their mortgage between the third and fourth year. But I think the main question on people's minds is penalty. So, is the penalty worth it? A lot of people say, wait a minute, I'm locked in. There is a penalty.
There is a penalty.
So and how do we go about that?
It's part of the calculation. Okay. So first and foremost, typically when you're our customer, when we structure a mortgage for you, the mortgage is set up in a way where you're going to have the lenders that we use, okay, to put it simply, the penalties are more advantageous compared to some of the big banks. Okay, so some of the big banks are going to charge you an arm and a leg to break the mortgage. The way that we structure the mortgages, the penalties tend to be a little bit more easygoing. Okay, so much less, to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars sometimes.
So you would say, when somebody signs for a mortgage, talking about penalty is an important
paramount. Is top of mind, okay? But a lot of people that come to see us who didn't start off as our customers, they came to see us, 3-4 years later after they had set up their mortgage, and now they're in to see us to do a refinance, and we're faced with, a $10,000, $12,000, $15,000, $20,000 penalty, and I've seen it all. Okay. And sometimes it's small, sometimes it's a couple of grand, and other times you end up getting those massive ones. It's a black and white calculation. It's not, there's no gray zone in it. What is your situation pre-refinance? What is your situation after the refinance? Are you ahead of the game after the refinance, or are you losing money? One of the things that I always promise our listeners, and I promise my clients, I'm never going to get anyone to exchange 4 quarters for $1, right? Or worse, exchange, give me $1 and I'm going to give them 75 cents. It's not going to happen. I always want to make sure that the customer, and all our brokers, as a matter of fact, want to make sure that the customer is ahead of the game once they've done a refinance or once they've restructured a mortgage.
So you're saying, even if it is a $10,000 penalty as an example, if using those funds will increase your cash flow by $3,000 a month, then you say, green light, this calculation makes sense.
Yeah, it's not only on the cash flow though. It's even looking further. How, if you carried this debt over the next 5 years, what is it going to ultimately cost in interest?
Goodness. Yes.
Right? If you're carrying $20,000, $30,000 of credit card debt, right, at 18% interest, you understand that even if you have a $10,000 penalty to pay,
yes, you're right.
Chances are you're going to be further ahead than if you don't break it. But you have to make sure that you're not going to get yourself back into the same situation.
Yes. So you're not going to pay off those credit cards, lines of credits, etc., and then refill them back up.
Exactly.
Because you can't do this every year.
But this is where, you theoretically can.
If there's equity. Yes.
But you don't want to be using your house as an ATM. And this is where we come in. This is how, when we structure that mortgage, when we do the refinance, part of the conversation that we have is how to help you increase those assets. Because if you're not increasing those assets and life happens, because life does happen, right? Roof needs to be changed. The car needs to be changed. There's, multitude,
divorce.
There's all kinds of things that come up, right? Well, when life happens, if you haven't built up any assets, what's going to end up happening is you're going to focus on debt again. And now you're getting yourself back into the same circle, right? It's a spiral. And this is what the banks want you to do. And, one of the things that really, really upsets me and gets me every time I go to like Indigo or Chapters or one of these places, and I go through the finance section or the self-help section, and I see financial gurus talking about how, before saving, you need to pay off your credit cards. You need to pay off your debt. You do that, what you're going to be left with is more debt. Period. Because when life happens, you're going to have to rely on the debt. You need to do things in...
So you suggest more, you pay your debts, but also build up that cushion, your assets.
Yeah.
I don't like to call it a rainy day fund, because it's not for a rainy day fund. It's really, you're building up your net worth.
Financial freedom fund.
Exactly.
There you go.
I do get what you're saying, is that you're not in the right state of mind if you're only paying down debts. You're not... Yes, you're further ahead financially, but you're not feeling further ahead.
Yeah. Because
you open your bank account and there's still zero in the bank account. And yes, your credit card might go from -20 to -10, but it's still not fulfilling enough. And you're still not ahead of the game. You're not building up that net worth in a way that's motivating.
Exactly.
I get what you're saying.
It's a huge problem. And, for our listeners that, have read the book The Secret or watched the movie, one of the things that they actually talk about is what you focus is what you end up getting. So if you're focusing all your energy on paying off debt, what you're going to be left with at the end is debt. Even though you've worked so hard to try and pay it off, you're just going to have debt at the end. But if you focus on prosperity and you focus on savings and you focus on building up those assets, then you're going to have assets that are built up. Your net worth is going to go up and your liabilities are going to go down as a byproduct of increasing your assets.
I like it.
And it's so important.
No,
and
it makes
one
sense.
day I will write a book. I've been promising people for the last dozen years that I will do it. I will do it. I just need like a month off of work.
So now the question is, the maximum amount you can refinance is always 80%, or is there exceptions to that? 80% of the value of the property?
So the maximum amount that anyone can refinance a property is 80% of its value. If you don't have a mortgage on the property and you decide that you want to tack a line of credit on as opposed to refinancing, the maximum that you can go to is 65%. So a line of credit cannot exceed 65% of the value of a home, and refinancing with typical mortgage cannot exceed 80%.
And you could do whatever you want with that money?
Whatever it is you want. You can take the money and go on vacation.
Which is not
advisable.
Not advisable unless you take a small portion of it.
Yeah.
You know, because again, you could take a vacation, you could buy a car, you could do all kinds of things that it's more like disposable. But then you're not left really with anything.
Exactly. One of the key things when you are actually and you brought up, I mentioned vacation, and I just want to touch on something because it's very important. As humans, we've been taught that, having debt is bad, having, refinancing might be bad, all these things. But unfortunately, if you just focus on savings and you focus on paying off your debts, you're not living. And if you're not living, you're going to get miserable. And if you get miserable, you're going to binge out and you're going to do something stupid, right? So it's important that you keep a balance. And a lot of times when I actually refinance someone, one of the things that I actually suggest that they do after the refinance is actually take a vacation. So it's super important that we do that. Stay tuned for more talk about refinancing and whether or not it's a good time to do so. You're listening to CJAD 800. Now we're off to the CJAD Traffic Center.
You're listening to The Real Estate Show with your real estate and mortgaging team, Terry Kilakos and Merav Marciano on CJAD 800.
Thanks for joining us today. We've been talking about refinancing your mortgage during these times of rock bottom rates.
Yes.
Silver lining to this whole COVID.
Under 2% for a 5-year fix. Yeah. I'm still in shock.
I know. Silver lining to all this COVID nonsense. Whatever.
Yes.
Before we went to traffic, we talked about
using some of that money from your refinance for a vacation, and you got into the whole lifestyle.
And I just want to explain that because I know that throughout this week, I'm going to start receiving a whole bunch of, hate email at the office from financial advisors and people
it's not
saying
hate mail. It's loving criticism.
Exactly. I just want to clarify something and what I meant by it. When you I want you to think about your money and your finances like obesity, if you will. Okay. And now if you see my wife's face, she's just went, whatever. Or, no, seriously, hear me out. Okay. Cause she's like, what are you about to say? Hear me out. Okay. Think about someone that is very overweight. Okay. Hear me out here. She's shaking her head like, oh my God, what are you going to say now? Hear me out. Think of someone that's very overweight. You get to a point and you say, I am fed up. I need to lose weight. So you go on a diet, you start going to the gym, you start exercising, and you start losing weight, right? It starts working. You're losing weight, you're losing weight, you're losing weight, you're losing weight. And then all of a sudden you hit a plateau. When you hit that plateau, now all of a sudden your efforts are not having the same results. So because they're not having the same results, you start to get into a little bit of a depression, right? When you get into a little bit of a depression, now all of a sudden you might skip the gym. You might end up overeating again. And now all of a sudden the weight might start to come back on. It's the same mechanism in our brains when it comes to money, okay? it's very, very important that we understand this. When you've accumulated debt, typically there is an underlying cause. And if that underlying cause is not addressed, and if you're not taking care of yourself as well as taking care of your finances, your body and your mind is going to fight you every step of the way. So you're going to need to give a little back to your mind and to your body, so that way you can have success. And if it means that you take a refinance, you pay off all your debts, and you take a little bit of have a cheat day, have some cheat money come out of there so that you can actually go on vacation and enjoy your life a little bit, then so be it. You're saving $2,000 a month in all your restructuring, put $1,500 aside, keep $500 for yourself to enjoy. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so you see, you didn't have to worry that I was going to say something.
No, I mean, I get the whole weight loss analogy.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. And, I find also what you can refinance, and some people, it's vacation that gets them fulfilled, but others, it's putting money into an investment vehicle.
That's right.
So let's say you pull out $30,000, 20 of it goes to pay off debts, 10 of it goes into RSPs or investments. It's really fulfilling to see that money sitting in your investments, to know that your refinance went to something good.
Yeah. And, along those lines, what can you use the refinance money for? Obviously to pay off debts, obviously to invest, and obviously to buy another property.
Yes. So we've used that strategy ourselves.
Yes.
You refinance, you use that money as a down payment for your next property. And for investment properties, it works really well, especially that the interest that you pay is tax deductible.
Exactly.
So it's a really good strategy. And a lot of the real estate gurus out there, that is the strategy they use. They buy, they improve, they increase the value, and then they refinance, pull out some of that equity, and buy their next property and their next one and their next one.
And actually, I'll just tell you a little bit of a funny story. Talking about refinancing and buying other properties, CMHC has actually passed rules with respect to multi-units. So when we're going 5+ doors, CMHC, you're typically able to refinance a property all the way up to 85% with CMHC. That is for over 5 doors. Don't call me and say, you said I can go to 85. No, over 5 doors, you can go to 85%. CMHC backed. But now what CMHC is obliging is that when you do that, that money has to be used for the purchase of another property or improvements on the existing one. So interestingly enough, you can't refinance it, take it out, and go on vacation.
Because they want real estate investors to continue investing in real estate. They don't want you to go on a vacation thanks to that money. Absolutely. Yeah. And now, so we said you can refinance to pay off debts, to increase your cash flow, to take a little vacation, to buy another property. And also we've seen a lot of people pull out some of the equity from their home to give or to lend to their kids as a down payment to buy a home.
100%.
So rather than having their kids struggle to budget and to save up that down payment, they actually go in, refinance, and now they can contribute to their children's future by giving them that down payment.
Which we see all the time.
Yes.
And some people might be listening and saying, well, I wouldn't necessarily do that. I want my kids to fend for themselves, but others will do that. They're gonna. It's funny. I had a client years ago. He came in to do a refinance for his, to help pay for his son's wedding, and he was giving his son, $100,000, and he said, I want my son to keep all the gifts that they receive. So we're gonna pay for it, and we're considering it an early inheritance for him, and that's it. That's all. Oddly enough, once the son ended up coming to, once the wedding was done, he had gotten the wedding gifts, and seeing as he had all this money, he says, hey, I'm going to go and get pre-approved to buy a property with this money. He comes to see me, and it wasn't the father that actually referred him to us. The son just came randomly, and then I got a call from the father saying, please don't tell my son that I refinanced the property. I thought that was
confidentiality is key in our business.
I thought that was funny. So it's very important that whatever decision that you take, refinancing is an option. It's something that we can definitely look at Northeast. We specialize in helping people kind of restructure their finances, whether and we have the financial side, we have the mortgage side, we have the real estate side. We cover all bases from A to Z. Yeah. So if somebody does come in and refinance and they don't have someone to help them invest their money, we have that division that we can use.
And during COVID times, a lot of people chose to refinance.
Yes.
So,
well, that was the other thing. People, when they saw the stock market take a nosedive, people came in, they refinanced, and they took their money and they dumped it in the stock market, and they have made a killing on it. They made a killing. I mean,
and that portion of their mortgage is
tax deductible,
the interest.
That's right. And that's a very important part of the conversation. When you refinance, even if it's for a principal residence, if you're taking that money and investing it, that portion is tax deductible, the interest.
Guys, we've run out of real estate. You're listening to The Real Estate Show on CJAD 800. If you want to get a hold of us, you can reach us at the office at 514-680-4674, or you could visit us
online at www.nordest.ca, so NORDEST.ca.
Till next week, everyone. Have a blessed week. Love you all.